Thank you for joining us for today's webinar, How to Efficiently Ship Product to Your Customer, presented by Simplify Supply Chain Solutions. My name is Allison Mitchell, and I'm part of the Greater Kitchener-Waterloo Chamber of Commerce team. Before we start the webinar, I have a few housekeeping items to review. Your microphones should be muted, but if you could please double check that to reduce background noise, we would appreciate it. Please feel free to ask questions throughout the webinar, and you can do so by typing your questions into the questions box in your control panel. Our presenter will be answering your questions after her presentation. After the webinar, you will receive a follow-up email with a link to today's webinar recording. Our presenter today is Jennifer Seberras. Jennifer is the founder of Simplify Supply Chain Solutions. She has over 15 years of experience in all principal areas of logistics, working with small to multinational companies across a wide range of businesses that include food, pharmaceutical, livestock, tobacco, and technology. Her specialty in logistics is the implementation of sustained cost reductions. Jennifer holds a business diploma from Sheridan College, certifications from the Schulich Business School, York University, certifications in change management, Lean and Six Sigma. Jennifer holds a designation as a professional logistician. She is also a member of Supply Chain Management Association of Ontario. I would now like to invite Jennifer to begin her presentation.
Thank you, Allison. Hello, everybody. I hope everyone is having a fantastic day. Thank you for joining me on this presentation. So today I'm going to be talking a little bit about the supply chain and really the final mile of the supply chain. So how to essentially get your product from you to your customer. So as you can see by the title of the, hopefully everybody can see my screen. So we're going to talk about how to efficiently ship your product to your customer. So our agenda today. So pivoting during the COVID-19 pandemic, processes, delivery partnerships, and checklist. So today I'll be speaking about supply chain management best practices with a focus on logistics and the transportation component of the supply chain. At the end of this session, you should be able to walk away with a better understanding of best practices for small businesses, including how to reduce related costs. With everything that's happened with COVID-19, businesses are pivoting and adapting to the new way of doing business. These strategies including expanding their current e-commerce operations to ensure that customers continue to have access to their product. In this presentation, I will be speaking about the final mile logistics, how your product gets to your customer once they have ordered from you. So let's get started with a definition, a very high level definition of what is the supply chain. Simply put, the supply chain is a network between a company and its suppliers to produce and distribute a specific product to their final buyer. The supply chain also includes steps that are required to get their product or services from its original state to their customer. Managing all components of the supply chain is very important for businesses of all sizes. So no matter what size your business is, there should be certain processes that you put in place to help with some decision making to choose the right partnership for you. Whenever I mention processes, most people, their eyes start to glaze over because let's face it, it sounds pretty boring. However, I can assure you that having the right process in place makes a world of a difference. It's not just about quickly putting in a process in place, it's about the bigger picture. Managing your final mile of logistics requires selecting a delivery partner or partners. That's where process comes into play. Before you select a delivery partner, I recommend that you create a checklist of what your needs and your goals are for your business to help you identify your prospective partners that best suits your business and the needs that you want to achieve. So here I have on the screen, before a process is created, these are some of the questions that I ask myself and I ask my customers to ask themselves. So first you want to identify So when you're picking a partner, you want to identify what exactly do you want from them, and you want to create a purpose and a goal. So why are you going to, one of the first questions I ask myself is, why are you going to a new provider? What exactly are you looking for? And then once you create that and you know what your end goal is, then you're going to analyze, is this process meeting your goals? Then you want to implement. So with implementation of carriers or a delivery partner, you want to see, are they holding up to the agreement that you originally had with them? Are their rates changing when you get their invoices? Can you communicate with them easily? Do you know where your product is? Things like that. And then once that implementation is, you really want to monitor, and not for a short period of time. You want to monitor, and I like to monitor in increments of 3. So I like to check every 3 weeks. And I keep seeing, you know, again, are there all the promises that the provider said to me, are they following through with it? Are they delivering my packages on time? Do I have transparency on any issues with my package or delays? Things like that. So the answers that you create for the questions helps you formulate a strategic plan that can result in cost savings. If you don't know where your starting point is, then you can't get to the end goal or even create one. Sometimes with small business, we are so focused on getting our amazing product out to our customer that we are not thinking about the cost of shipping it to our customers. There's some companies that I've worked with in the past that have decided to ship their product themselves, thinking that it's going to save them money. However, due to both the time and the financial cost involved, it is not always the best strategy for them. Your time is a cost just like money, and it has to be seen as that. You have to include that cost into your when you're evaluating shipping your product. And is that time that you're using to ship, is your time being better spent shipping product yourself by putting it in the car, or could it have been better working on the business and you have a very good delivery partner that can help you get your product to where it needs to be? So the other thing I see very often is that some businesses will start shipping with larger carriers. So this may seem great in the beginning, but this method, as it progresses, doesn't seem to always be the best method from a strategic standpoint and from a cost reduction standpoint. So what are your options? What are options out there for shipping partners? So depending on the size of your business, companies, you might be using UPS, Purolator, or Canada Post. One thing to be aware of when you use the larger companies is the influx of the shipping demand due to COVID-19 is that the larger companies are starting to struggle with moving their product in a timely manner. When there is an influx of orders, the usual model of next day or the day after may not be realistic, and you'll want to alert your customers about the potential delays that may be out of your hands. Otherwise, you risk having your customers lose faith in you as a customer and hurting your brand, even if you did everything on your part to get their product out on time. So to give you a general idea, most large courier companies, depending on the company, they're usually shipping 1 million packages a day. Think about that, 1 million packages a day the larger companies are shipping. So what are other things to consider is the ability that these larger companies have to respond to you if there's an issue, right? So if you have a larger company that you have shipping for you and you said you had 3 boxes, but you've got 5 boxes, are they going to take your product? Last minute changes that you have maybe in the delivery address or maybe even in the pickup address? Or what if your product has a return? Is the larger companies going to help you with that? Something to think about. So to reduce this risk, you'll want to diversify your logistics approach, which will make your business more resilient. When you have only one company who you have a relationship with for your deliveries, they have a lot of the power. which can put your customer relationship and your bottom line at risk. Take the larger companies. They are different. Take UPS and Canada Post. They are different companies, but have similar models. We deliver your package fast and we get you a good price. Companies like this can provide a good cost per shipment because of the size of their company. But did you know that there's a lot of local companies, delivery companies, that can deliver within a 250-kilometer radius for a similar price? Even if you don't exclusively go local, even if you don't exclusively go with a local delivery company, developing a relationship with a local shipper or two can expand your shipping options should you need more flexibility. For example, take Simplify Supply Chain Solutions. We have a delivery aspect to our company. We have similar rates in the 200-kilometer radius as the larger guys. The delivery needs, sorry, I lost my place. So the good thing about going with a local company as well is that we focus on our local customers. We don't have worldwide customers taking up our delivery resources. Additional benefits to using a local delivery service is you're building a relationship with your provider and you're not just another number. Just like most things, when you have a positive relationship with a company, they're more likely to go over and above than the other guys. When you use a local delivery company, they're usually more accessible to you if you have any issues or any last minute changes. This is key to when you look at your strategic and your cost reductions, because with smaller companies, local companies, some of them will look at the product that you're shipping out or how often you're shipping out and give you some suggestions on how to save a little bit of cost, whether you ship more during that week, whether you ship once a week. You can work with your delivery provider to try to help you with your cost, where the larger guys don't necessarily do that. They just ship your package. The other benefit of using a local business is they have a vested interest in seeing your company grow. If you grow, so do they. That's a pretty great incentive. The other great thing about having a local delivery business is the ability to diversify your final mile customer. Some of you are delivering directly to your customer's home, and some of you are delivering directly to stores. With the KW area, there's a lot of companies that I have dealt with that deliver groceries or different products, and they do go to both areas. Now, there are some larger companies that do deliver to retail stores, but you might pay a little bit more, and there's a few other things that are associated with that, whether it's wait times at the store that can cost you a little bit of money. Now, for larger businesses, they may be able to have something called a third-party logistics to do all their logistics need. This is great, but can also be a little bit costly. On an extremely high level, a third-party logistics company, also known as a 3PL, are companies that take care of all your transportation and logistics needs and can help, among other things, scheduling and booking of your delivery appointments directly to stores. Most retail stores require delivery appointments depending on the size of the shipment that they are receiving. Although a 3PL can be a great option, sometimes they can be costly and maybe not accessible to growing businesses. For startup businesses with 25 employees and under, a 3PL is just not a realistic option at this time. A good local delivery provider is usually willing to assist you with these type of deliveries. Here is a checklist of what you should be looking for in a delivery partner. 1, do they have a reference? What is their track record? A lot of companies will tell you that they have non-disclosure agreements and NDAs, and that they can't provide, who their customer is. But not everybody, not all customers have NDAs. So they should be able to show you what their track record is, or at least somebody you can speak with to speak to their performance. 2, does the delivery provider have their own drivers? I might be biased. We have our own drivers in our own van. The good thing about this is that if the company owns their own vehicles and has their own employees, then they know where their drivers are at all time, whether it's through GPS or radio. Sometimes when providers don't have their own vehicle, they're subcontracting out their deliveries, and this can be an issue for a few things, including theft. What's their insurance like? You want to ensure that delivery companies you are building a relationship with has the proper insurance and regulatory requirements to move your product. What is their process for lost and stolen product? Although we'd love to live in a world where theft does not happen, it does, and often. And you want to ensure that your provider has processes in place to eliminate these threats. Some additional tips. As discussed earlier, there is merit in having at least 2 different delivery providers. You never want to be in a situation where one single delivery provider has all the cards. Having several delivery partners can create a sense of competition between the 2 providers, and that's great, keeps them on their toes. I know as a provider, even though I would love all the business, I want what's best for my customer, and I want them to go to other people, check out my rates. Also remember, just because they're a local provider and they may be smaller than the larger guys, they should still have certain processes in place to ensure that your product is getting to your customer in a timely, safe, and respectful way. Another important tip is always create a contract with your delivery provider. This will outline the terms in the agreements, including pricing. This helps in several ways. When you know your pricing ahead of time, you can project what your future sales will be, or you'll project the cost of shipping your future sales. There can also be a clause in your contract where you can negotiate your rates and review them on a regular basis. This may be quarterly, this may be yearly, but this is something that you can work with your delivery provider with. A contract will also help you in case there's any issues with lost products. With some of the larger guys, unless you're buying their insurance for your packages that you're shipping, which most people don't because the cost of insurance can be quite high. If they lose your product, sometimes you're out of the product. You can there usually is a claim process in place, but that can take a long time. Having more than one delivery partner also allows you to negotiate for the best rates. There is no harm in communicating to your provider when your contract is up for negotiation that you are looking not just at the best service, but also at the best rates. If you're saving a 1% on your delivery costs, that can make a world of a difference for a lot of companies. So in conclusion, the whole purpose of this presentation is to let growing businesses know, regardless of the size, that it's very important that when you're dealing with delivery providers, that there's a lot of local providers out there that can provide amazing service and can also give you, can help you with negotiating rates. They can help you with saving costs and some strategic planning ahead of time. So that's my presentation. I hope you all enjoyed. If you have any questions, please feel free to ask.
Great, thanks so much, Jennifer. As Jennifer mentioned, if you do have any questions, please feel free to type them into the questions box in your control panel. First question, so if a business is in a position where they're just starting to ship products, so it's not something that they have done in the past, what are some of the key questions that they should be asking potential delivery providers?
Yeah, so that's a great question. One would be, is there a minimum amount that you can ship to get a better price, simply put? So if you're shipping 2 or 3 items a week, you might get a standard rate from your delivery provider, but if you're shipping, let's say, 6 to 10 items per week on a regular basis or every other week, this way you can negotiate with your delivery provider to give you better rates.
Okay, great. So another question, what about shipping food?
Yep, so it depends on the food that you're shipping. the question? Is it the different equipment that you would use to deliver food, or the different?
The question was just about what about shipping food. So perhaps are there other special considerations that businesses who are shipping food need to think about?
Yep, there are. So it depends on the product that you're shipping. So I'll try to put it as simple as possible. But so it depends on what the product is. If it's frozen, even if it's not frozen, it might require, it depends if it's temperature controlled. Does it have to, is it shipped in glass? There's a few different things, but just let's say you got that all sorted out. Shipping food we ship food all the time. So you just want to make sure that your delivery provider has the proper insurance in case there's any issues with damaged product. If you want to elaborate a little bit more on, like, a lot of local providers can ship food. It just depends on what it is. If it's, let me try to think, like, we ship sauces for a couple companies, and it doesn't require any type of temperature control because we pick up and deliver same day. And we deliver directly to stores for some of them, and we deliver directly to customers, the customers' residential addresses. So shipping food is perfectly great for local delivery services.
Okay, and this person that submitted the question provided the clarification that it's meals, condiments, and snacks.
Yeah, so you want to, again, you want to meet with your provider. You want to see what they offer you. You want to try to go with a little bit of information to them. So maybe how often you're shipping. If you have a set day that maybe you're dispersing 20 different meals to different residential areas, that's really helpful for them, because depending on, like, we have temperature controlled vehicles. So if you have to keep your product hot, we can do that as well. And there's other local delivery companies that have different modes of, like, so there might be temperature control to keep it hot or cold. That's definitely, they're able to ship that type of product.
Okay, and as a follow-up, it's from the same person, so my guess it's around food as well. How can you figure out the cost to ship in order to decide what to charge for the product?
Great question. But there's a lot of variables that go into that. That really is a very wide question. You'd have to do like a SWOT analysis. I'm not sure if you've done that or where you are in the growth of your business, but with a SWOT analysis, you'll be able to kind of see what your current product, if there's other people that are shipping similar products, what they're charging. It's always good to go to a provider and say, hey, these are the postal codes that I'm going at or that I plan on delivering to. This is the size of the boxes that we have. We're shipping 1 to 2 times a week. And they can give you an idea, and then you can take that cost and see if it can work with you. But it's also good to go to several providers and say, hey, what's your cost? Because we do have general standards of shipping costs. That's kind of industry standard. You're going to find a little higher, a little lower, but they're usually around the same cost. So, calling somebody up and just saying, hey, what's it going to cost me to move this many times a week to this address is good.
Okay, great. So we've had a couple of similar questions, and one is, how do we ship to other provinces? And the other one is, what's the best way to ship North America wide? So maybe you could address those questions together.
So it depends. So what's best to ship different provinces? It depends. Are we talking about pallets, or are we talking about shipments that are just in a box? So if it's, again, it depends on how often you're going. We go to different provinces. We go to New Brunswick, Quebec. So it just depends on like how big your product is, how much it weighs. Sometimes, going to the larger companies might be a little bit better when it comes to long distance shipping. but I'd really have to know kind of what, how often you're shipping, how big the product is. If it's a pallet compared to a box, then there's different ways or methods that might be a little bit better for each.
Okay, great. Okay. So there's a question here. We ship fabric patches / masks, which are 20 grams each. Any advice on what delivery method can be used? The Canada Post tracking shipping costs. The Canada Post tracking shipping costs more than the product itself.
Yeah. So it depends on where you're going. If you're going to Ontario, or like if you're going within I'm going to say maybe 100-kilometer radius of yourself, of where your pickup location would be, those might be a good way to talk to a local delivery provider, because they're going to try to work with you. They might piggyback your deliveries with another delivery that they may have, and that can save you costs as well. And there's no harm in talking to a delivery provider and saying, hey, can you piggyback my stuff on a truck, because I go to Toronto 3 times a week. Well, the Toronto lane from KW, and when I say lane, that usually refers to the 401 corridor, but that's very busy. There's tons and tons of shipments that are going out locally that you could probably piggyback on. So you want to, again, that's another great thing about having a delivery provider that you have a relationship with, because you can ask those questions and they can kind of give you some feedback. Yeah.
Okay, great. Thank you. Where's the best place for small businesses to buy shipping supplies like boxes?
Well, there's different companies. I mean, there's Uline. Again, it depends on your volume, but you can do local. There's Uline. Online usually has some pretty good products out there that you can get for a pretty good rate. I've never been asked that question before. That's a great question. I would say when we need to use our own like boxes, we usually ship with Uline or get our product from Uline. But I'm sure there's more local companies out there that might have that type of product that you're looking for.
Great, thanks. So we opened the question period with talking about businesses who haven't done any shipping before and where they should start. What about the businesses who already have a delivery provider but maybe want to do a bit of an analysis to make sure that they're shipping efficiently as possible? Are there some key steps that they could take in order to do that kind of analysis? Are there key questions they should be asking their existing delivery providers?
Yeah, so one would be, if you don't have a contract with your existing provider, get a contract. This keeps them in line. You want to make sure that whatever the rate is, and this is the joy of going to a provider, even if you have an existing one, they should be able to give you what your rate is per stop, or it might be a per kilometer rate. So even if it changes with volume, it should only, like, just a little bit should the cost change. So that's the joy of having a contract with a delivery provider. A lot of small businesses that I've interacted with and have relationships with always say, well, I'm still growing, I don't know if I should have a contract. You should. All large companies, multi-billion-dollar companies have contracts with all their provider, and so should you. And again, it keeps, you're making sure that whatever they quoted you for your shipment is what you're actually being charged. There is something called fuel surcharge and FSC. This changes weekly, but it only changes by very slightly, and it's accessible to see online what the current fuel surcharge is. You should be asking your provider about that. You should be reviewing your invoices. And this is where having the contract is really important, because you can review your invoice, and if there is an additional cost, you can't really say, hey, that wasn't in our contract, right? So you really want transparency with your delivery provider. So my biggest thing would be when you're shipping, and if you're currently shipping or you're new to shipping, you should have a general cost per postal code, what it's going to cost you to ship your product. And it should be transparent. It should be the cost to move your product, fuel surcharge, and if it's going to a retail store, then there is usually a wait time, and you get a certain time allotted at a, most delivery providers have a certain amount of time for small shipments. It's called LTL, less than a truckload. So if your product is less than a truckload, you usually get 30 minutes free at a delivery location. Anything after 30 minutes, there's usually some type of charge, only at retail stores. So those are the things you wanna kind of jot down when you're talking to your delivery provider, and you really want them to be transparent.
Okay. Who creates the contract? Is it the delivery company or is it the business with the product?
We usually help our, depending on the size. Again, if you're just starting or you're just starting to ship, we help create the agreement. But there's many places where you can kind of look at the template. If anybody wants to reach out to me to kind of get some information on what should be on there. We, as a delivery provider, we have our own contracts, but we share that with our customers and let them see it ahead of time and explain everything in that contract, because there's some verbiage that I'm an expert in transportation, and the people that are shipping their product are an expert in their product. So I don't assume that they may know all the different ins and outs. So we like to explain to them every aspect of our contract, because it's about 3 or 4 pages long.
Okay, great. What are you seeing, Jennifer? I mean, the pandemic has created havoc in a lot of businesses. And so what are you seeing specifically the impacts being on the delivery services?
I think for the delivery service, it's just, again, this is why I think it's great when you have your own drivers, because you're not worried about, kind of shipping your customer's product out to somebody else. But it's really given a spotlight on how important transportation delivery is, the supply chain, why having a really good provider is important. Because when you go to, just like anything, nobody expected this, right? When you have a good delivery provider, they should be able to help you adapt to these changes. When all this started happening, we had a lot of customers that they put a lot of their product online that wasn't necessarily online. And we helped them navigate it, right? So whether it was, we had people that were delivering and had pickups at their deliveries, where that might be an additional cost by, there would be an additional cost. We cut those in half just because we were helping them to navigate it, right? So I think the biggest impact that I've seen is that our customers, the feedback that we've gotten from our customers is that when they used a service like ours or a local provider, they were able to adapt quicker. They were able to ask questions to, whether it was myself as the owner or their customer service rep. And so it helped them transition their business a little bit better. I hope that answered the question.
Yeah, thanks. So when you talk about being a local provider, can you give some insight into what is the radius that your company, for example, delivers? And at what point would a business look at a local provider versus a provider if they're shipping across provinces or internationally?
Yeah. So we ship all over. We go into Quebec, Montreal, New Brunswick. We don't necessarily go to Calgary or that direction, but so when I say a local provider, so we're based out of Guelph, but we are able to provide, same day delivery, next day delivery within like a 250-kilometer radius for the same price as most of the larger guys. If they're delivering multinational, even if you have local deliveries, and then your business starts to grow and you have businesses in other provinces, when you have a relationship with a delivery provider, you can ask those questions. So there's some areas that we do not go to, that some of our customers go to, where I will reach out to the contact in my, that I've known over the years, and I'll put them in contact directly with those providers, because I know that they ship in the different locations. I know where they ship, and I can tell by, my experience with them before if they're good at where they ship to. So, so yeah, it depends on where you're shipping. Your local people, the local providers. There's some delivery providers that only ship within the Tri-Cities, right? So it really depends on your business. And then there's some local providers that deliver out to Canada and Ottawa, right? So it really depends on, you'd have to call the different providers and say, hey, do you ship to this? What's your rates? There is a little bit of work that goes into finding a provider, but once you do find one, then it's, if you put a little bit of elbow grease in, you usually get a much better product.
Great. So it sounds like, if you're new to shipping, then, seeking a provider, you want to make sure that the provider actually delivers to where you need to send your product, but maybe looking a step forward, if you're expecting your business to grow, then how can that provider also help you expand in terms of where you're shipping?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay, great. Well, those are all the questions that we have at this point. So Jennifer, I would like to thank you so much for sharing your time and your expertise with us. We really appreciate you, sharing this great information so that we can help our local businesses. To those who are on the webinar, as I mentioned, you will receive a follow-up email, and in that email you will receive a link to the webinar recording. I would encourage you to also visit the Chamber's website, as we have a list of our upcoming webinars there, as well as the past webinars that we have hosted, and you can rewatch them there if you'd like. Again, Jennifer, I'd like to thank you so much for your time, and have a great day, everyone.
Thank you.